Joining me now is Dr. Volker Stanzel, former German ambassador to China and Japan and a senior distinguished fellow at the German Institute for International and Security Affairs. Good to have you on the program with us. What are your thoughts on this? Do you believe the West is entering a new Cold
Well,
War with
uh,
Russia? Is this a fair
first of
assessment?
allow me as a German and a European an initial remark, because for us, Germans and Europeans, Gorbachev was a visionary, someone who had also at the same time the political strength, the power to make an end of the Soviet Empire. You might call it the Soviet experience. And that was to the benefit of his people. It was to the benefit of other Europeans, mainly in Eastern Europe, and of course to the benefit of my own people who regained a unified country. Later, of course, he was not able to govern the new Russia he had created. That is a tragedy, but his past achievement stands. This as an initial remark. Now, yes, I would reply to you, we are at the brink of a new Cold War, but it is not one between Russia and the United States. Look, the Soviet Union represented an ideology, communism. It represented, after all, a vision of a world derived out of the philosophy of Marxism. And in the end, that was a philosophy like the same way like liberalism, coming out of enlightenment. While seeking domination, of course, you might call it the Soviet Empire, at the same time, the Soviet Union represented a promise to the people that it governed. Today's Russia, that's Putin's Russia, is just another totalitarian country at the beck and call of one leader, you might call it a kleptocratic leader, who tries to further his reach across the borders even of Russia, as we're seeing. So someone called this the perspective that Russia is going to become the gas station of China. And that leads me to another point, which is why I said, yes, we are at the brink of a new Cold War, but that is the Cold War, a new Cold War that may occur between the Western world, liberal world, and China. And the reasons are obvious. Now, China also represents a vision, which we don't know yet in detail, but it is promising to help create something like another world order. So there will be an almost ideological conflict between China and those countries who represent the liberal world so far. We don't know where it's heading, if it's really going to heaten up, but I think it's a mistake to just look at the conflict between Russia and Ukraine and what comes out of it, which is the conflict with Western countries who support Ukraine, and to declare this as a new Cold War.
Do you think this is by design, though, going back to that ideology, and of communism and Putin's Russia? And Putin has said that he believes the U.S. and NATO would use Ukraine as a launching pad for a preemptive strike against Russia. Do you think it's a Cold War mentality that's led us to this point?
No, I think it's more revisionist kind of thinking, totalitarian-oriented kind of thinking. I mean, Putin famously once said that the collapse of the Soviet Union was the greatest catastrophe of the 20th century, which you can only say if you disregard all the pain the Soviet Union inflicted upon its victims, and if you disregard the hope of the Russian people and the other people governed by the Soviet rulers to be liberated. But it reflects the thinking of someone who would like to recreate something like an empire, maybe a Russian empire. And he himself has spoken about Peter the Great as something like a role model for himself. So I think this is what we're looking at, and it's a very personal ideology of power.
Okay, we're going to leave it there for now. Dr. Volker Stanzel joining us from Berlin. Thank you for your thoughts and insight.
Thank you.